Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Thriving Minds podcast with your host, Walter Parada, where we strive to provide you with empowering talks so you can live to thrive. I hope you find yourself in the right frame of mind, focusing on all the things within your control. Remember, if you enjoy these empowering talks, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and our YouTube channel. All right, so every episode will start off by saying, I hope you find yourself in the right frame of mind. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And this right frame of mind is going to be different for everybody. You know, for us to live empowered, to thrive. And it's focusing on the necessary things so we can take that right action to make the progress that we're after. You know, you can name the right frame of mind whatever you want. Some might identify it in general as a growth mindset, which is great because it's about getting better. It's knowing that even though you might be coming up short right now, you can work at it to eventually overcome it. But I'm just more focused on the key attributes that help you get in that right frame of mind. While it's straightforward and simple enough to get better, you know, work and refine who you are to bring out the great things about yourself. But that alone is insufficient at times to really get you going. We're all emotional beings. So we got to be considerate of that. And when we're aware of it and understand that that largely dictates what we decide to do, then it makes it manageable to navigate those times you don't feel like doing something, whether it's just laziness, you're just feeling down, or for whatever reason. When we're not in the right frame of mind, our emotions dictate our behaviors and actions, and that determines the amount of progress that we make. And in large part, that plays a significant role in how fulfilling life is for us. So when we're sad or when we're feeling down or we're just feeling lazy, we just go with it. Where we say, you know what, I don't feel like doing it, I'm not going to do it. And then on the flip side, when we're feeling energized, motivated, inspired, and just generally optimistic, then we'll put more effort and take more initiative in the things that we're pursuing. While this seems like a good way to go, it can be very frustrating because a lot of it is hit or miss. You know, the feeling of a all or nothing situation. You know, there's going to be a week where, you know, you have 3 good days and then 4 bad days or 4 days of not doing anything. So that's more than half of the week that was spent not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And that's not the right frame of mind to get you going. But before you can flourish in whatever it is that you choose to do, it requires consistently having a strong effort throughout the process, no matter how you feel. You know, it's the daily things that need to get done that add up significantly over time, where it brings you greater value. You know, all that work that was compiled. So when you have those off days, those days where you don't want to do anything, the right frame of mind is going to help you work past that feeling, knowing that even though I don't feel like doing this, I need to do it. Because eventually you'll be more satisfied with yourself. And the more that this becomes the focus, the more independent that you become of the results. It's not like they're irrelevant, but they're not the validation that you need. This is foundational to anything hard or challenging that you're pursuing, that you're attempting to achieve. Usually the greater the effort and longer the journey that is required in what you're after, those days will come where you're tired of what looks like lack of progress, what looks like you're even regressing, that makes it feel like you're just wasting your time or that you're kidding yourself. The right frame of mind is going to help you overcome those times where self-doubt starts to creep in, where you just don't feel like doing it. It's able to remind you, get you to focus on not what can't be done, but what you can do about it. It's having that ability to reset after, wanting to be in that negativity. So our brains are not designed to help us achieve monumental things or very difficult things. It's wired for us to survive, to do what's necessary to continue to exist. When we do what's necessary, we're fine with it. Whatever it might be, whether in school, I studied just enough, or I did just enough work to pass the exam, to pass a specific class, to graduate. Or at work, I did just enough to continue to do a good enough job, or at least not a bad enough job that I get fired. But are those habits really going to contribute to having the life that you really want, having a life where you can really thrive? That just enough thinking, it might seem that that's all I can do. And then once that's taken care of, that's where complacency starts to set in, where we're okay with living another day. And there's nothing wrong with that. But once you start to experience a little bit of that ambition, where you start to say, I want more than just getting by. I want to make progress, to elevate my perspective, to help me enjoy life more. Sometimes we may not realize that's what we want, but generally I think we're all working towards that to some degree. What happens when we start to experience an uncomfortable amount of resistance, that's where we want to leave things and go back to what we feel capable of doing. So if you accepted that promotion and things start to get hard, then you're second guessing yourself. Man, I should have stayed where I was at. I was really comfortable. That's kind of the thinking. Or just when you're moving on to something a little bit more challenging but worthwhile. Same thing, any little bit of resistance or a lot of resistance gets you to think like, damn, I should have stayed where I was at. Why am I even pursuing this? But that's part of the ambition that's within you. And it just takes time to develop ourselves. And the right mindset is going to help with that. So when you're working for something more, to get past that urge to retreat from what's difficult, it requires a constant feeding your mind with the right information, with the right message to help you move past that survival mode. Whatever that right frame of mind is for you, the specific thing that's going to help you get going, and we say it at the beginning of every episode, is focus on the things within your control. By doing this, you're identifying what's not in your control so you can filter that out so you're not distracted by them. And then you can clearly go after those things that you can do something about. Things like, I can't control the weather, but I can control how I prepare for some of the unexpected weather that might come. If it rains, I have an umbrella, or I have an extra pair of socks or an extra pair of shoes, whatever it might be. So by consistently reminding yourself of the things within your control, you're able to continue to work on breaking past that point of resistance, getting past it somehow, because with enough effort and enough figuring it out, you'll find ways to overcome it eventually. You'll find what works for you. And drilling this into yourself is actively preparing yourself to better handle those trying times. This helps to override the survival urge of wanting to retreat and go after something that's easy. When we experience a hard fall, a big mess, or any sort of failure, the emotions that we experience of sadness, frustration, disappointment, anger, humiliation, all these things can be used to your advantage where you give them the proper time and attention. They're going to give you some insights as to what you did. And in most cases, it's the bad things, right, that we tend to remember because those emotions evoke or remind us of what we did wrong. When we can remember what we did wrong, then we can better identify what needs to be done going forward and then work towards it to get better, making progress to get to that point that we want to be at. Come to see these emotions that many of us might see as negative emotions as your soldiers, that they're helping you in your mission in whatever it is that you're after. When you can embrace them as your allies, then it takes away some of that sharpness when you're allowing yourself to process them. If you see them as a nuisance or as the enemy, then that's where the tendency to wallow in self-pity, self-destructive talk and thoughts about yourself, that makes it very difficult to get out of that state. This concludes that you're just not good enough. But by embracing them as your soldiers and listening to them, they're giving you a lot of information that can potentially help find the answers so you can do better the next time. Oh, you know what? I did this wrong. I can do this better. This specific thing better, right? I failed that exam because I did poorly at work, because I got very little sleep. So you know what? I'm going to make sleep a priority. These things can make a difference. An example is taking a test, whether it's a SAT test, bar exam, commercial driver's test, airline pilot exam, whatever test that you can relate to. Let's say you had the expectations that you're going to pass it, and you come to find out you failed. Anger, frustration, sadness, disappointment, all these things are going to be coming at you really hard, and you need to give yourself the time to process those emotions. You got to do something that works for you, but typically, some might recommend you need to calm yourself down, almost like immediately. No, you need to let yourself work through those emotions in a manner that's helpful to you. So if you want to go into some room and scream, then go ahead and do it, because it can help alleviate some of that pressure. If you want to go ahead and complain about the situation, that's fine, as long as you can get it out of your system and move on to the next phase of, all right, what can I do about it? What are the things within my control to help me overcome this? By giving yourself that period to be uncensored, to let that raw emotion out, it gives you some bit of clarity to get to a more neutral state. Not that you're at a neutral state, but closer to it, so you can better evaluate things and not let the emotions get so far carried away. Remember, if you enjoy these empowering talks, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and our YouTube channel. So after the exam, you come to find out that you failed and you're working through the initial phase. That's going to help you better navigate the self-doubt, that's going to start to come on, and then you can gain some clarity to figure out what you did in general. You might come to find out that you could have prepared better. You could have prepared more effectively. You could have done a specific thing as part of your preparation to give you a better chance of doing well. Once you can find those answers, then you can get more to that neutral state and maybe even into that optimistic state where now you're strengthening your resiliency, and not just through the will to bounce back from this, but it was done in a very gradual way that helps break free from feeling inadequate. And what's amazing about these trying moments, why they're so pivotal, is because it's the intersection of how you decide to react or respond to it. Remember, when we react, we give in to our instincts that makes us be dictated by our emotions, and that can change in an instant. But when we respond, we take the time to think things through that allows for confidence to grow. By responding, you get that opportunity to reset so you can figure out how to best move forward from where you're at. So as time passes, you're more confident in the situations going forward because of how well you've handled previous adversity. Knowing that, hey, you know what? I went through this very uncomfortable period, but I was able to work through it and figure out this specific solution. So while from situation to situation, things may differ slightly or significantly, you have at least a general mental map of kind of what you did that's going to help you, going forward. This is how you kind of get into that right frame of mind. It's really a process of working through that uncomfortableness to find the strategy that fits you well. And just know that there's going to come a time where things are rough, you're out of that rhythm of that right frame of mind that works for you. So be patient with yourself if you happen to veer off course. The more you're aware of this, the better chance you have of correcting yourself to get back on track. So just remember, be patient with yourself. Just because you have an off day, a few off days, maybe even a few off weeks, it's not just you kind of flip the switch and say, all right, now it's time to get going, and expect that everything's going to fall into place. For some, that might work, but it's not always going to work. And if it doesn't work for you, just understand that you got to work through that period. The things both outside and within your control are going to affect your focus. So losing someone very close to you, whether it's a family member, a friend, or someone that you hold in high regard, maybe it's you lose your job, maybe you lose something else that's significant. So experiencing these setbacks personally or professionally or both is going to affect your focus. They have a big impact on our perspective. So when it becomes rocked, where it throws us out of sorts, we got to find an effective way to limit its downward spiral. Lean on the people that you really confide in, because they can help you work through some of that, where they help you get your focus in a certain direction that helps you build momentum. Sometimes all we need in our low point is someone to hear us out, knowing that we have someone that we can rely upon that cares for us and we care for them. And many times they might not even be the ones that have the answers for you, but merely pose the right questions to help you find the answers that you need. And there's going to be a catch-on period, when you're finding that rhythm. But what's going to help you be effective is just focus on one small action to get you going. This could be getting into the things that you really enjoyed and you somehow stopped doing. Maybe it's a hobby, whether it's writing, painting, drawing, playing sports, whatever it might be. Something that kind of brings you a certain level of enjoyment where you kind of forget about the things that are troubling you. Even doing things around the house that makes you feel accomplished, like maybe cooking or cleaning or washing the car. Working out is another great way to get yourself going. Maybe going for a walk, because when you're walking, it actually gets the mind a little bit more engaged and believing that you can achieve great things. So these kinds of things can just help you take a little bit of action to build that momentum, and then you can start to get into a rhythm. Then the next thing you know, your thoughts are about, what can I do about this? The things that are within my control. And those people that you lean on, make sure to keep them close, because they're going to help you be accountable. They're going to help you build up that discipline to eventually where when they're not there, you'll be enough on track. Sometimes all we need is a spark, and other times it takes a guided structure to show us the way, the things that need to get done. An important thing to note in getting into that right frame of mind, it's constant work. It's constantly conditioning yourself by acquiring the right information that enhances that mental state. So if you can make discipline and accountability the foundational pieces to what you do, then that's going to create these super helpful habits that lead the way. So if you're working to become a better athlete, if you can make exercise a habit, even when it's the off season, the things that improves your performance, whether it's stamina, strength, these are the things that are going to become a daily part of your routine. You don't even have to think about it. It's not whether you want to or don't want to, you just do it. Or if you want more clarity, where you have a great sense of knowing what's important, incorporate things like journaling daily about whatever's on your mind, talking to the people that you confide in on a regular basis, going for a walk to allow yourself to really work through some of those nagging thoughts. All these things just reinforce and build upon each other that ensures you consistently work towards what you have your mindset on. So in those times where you find yourself in that down state where you don't feel like it, the habits that you build carry you through where even though maybe you don't want to go for a jog, but it's been so ingrained into you that it's really not a matter of choice, but just a part of what you do. At this level, it can be very alleviating because it's not having to force yourself to do it. Just think of some of the things that we kind of have to work ourselves up to. If we're beginning to exercise, or we're beginning to eat healthier, or if we're beginning to read for pleasure, all of this can kind of be a dread. Maybe the first day not so much because we're excited to improve ourselves, but then maybe that second, third, fourth day or week or after a week, we're losing interest and we're like, oh man, I don't want to read, or oh man, I'd rather sit on the couch and not run. So with enough days of consistently doing what's necessary, taking the action that's needed to help you make progress, then it becomes so much more stickier. Maybe you want to get more work done and you try waking up an hour earlier to get a head start. With enough of doing this, then waking up early becomes less and less difficult. It becomes more doable. And now you're building on top of that. And now you're building up that stamina to where you give yourself the chance to get more work done. Once you do one of these things where they become a habit, then it builds confidence to do something else. So this could be starting to exercise, and with enough consistency, then it becomes part of your routine. And then the thinking is, well, what else can I do after this? Now it can start trickling into eating healthier, where I'll cut down on the fried foods, fatty foods, and you know what? I'll incorporate some brown rice, some vegetables, salmon, things like that. Once you get going, now you've got 2 good routines working for you. Then you go ahead and kick it up a notch and wake up an hour earlier to get more work done. And now because you're sleeping a little bit better, more profound, waking up an hour earlier, now it's not as hard because your body is getting the right amount of nutrients, exercise to keep you in shape, and a higher quality of rest. These are just great examples of things that you can do to build that momentum, and it's slowly and gradually building up your accountability, your discipline, where it then becomes habits that propel you forward. And all of this started with the right frame of mind. It's something that's very simple, very straightforward, nothing fancy, where you have the power to achieve what you want. A great thing that can really help overcome some of that racing, swirling thoughts that might be of negativity is simply write out the words and phrases that are going to reinforce that you can achieve what you set out for. Something that gives you that little boost of energy when self-doubt starts to creep in, or where you're feeling lazy and not wanting to do what you need to get done. This could even be a mantra where it's 3 to 4 words of, I know I can, I got to get this done, or something along the lines that provides some sort of boost when you don't feel like doing it. Nike has a great one where they just say, just do it. Less thinking and just taking action. Once you've identified this, then do something that works for you. You can reinforce it by writing it out maybe 10 times a day, 20 times a day, repeating it to yourself out loud in the mirror 10, 20 times a day, silently, whatever it might be. And with enough of conditioning yourself to this, then it just becomes a pre-programmed thought in response, where if you're overwhelmed, if you're in a state of flux, this immediately pops up and becomes a focus that gets you headed in the right direction. All this might seem irrelevant or that it provides no value, but until you try it, you'll see just how effective this approach is in getting in the right frame of mind. Even when you're in that ideal state of mind where you're focusing on the things within your control, you're focusing on the things that you need to get done, it's still an ongoing process to maintain it. Just because you get to that mental state doesn't mean it's over, that there's nothing left to be done. You always have to keep reinforcing it and feeding it, because if not, just like a muscle, it weakens over time if you're not using it. So you got to make sure to keep it sharp and keep it active. This is going to prove very helpful when you start to veer off track, where maybe your thoughts are going everywhere and you're not able to focus properly. It's going to make you more aware of hey, the focus is lacking. I need to get back to what's important. And if you happen to get in a funk where you've lost your rhythm, that mental state has eluded you, you got to work to get back there. You got to work to focus on one thing, to take action, so you're headed in that right direction. Just think of the many daily things that we got to get done to ensure our day is a little bit more smoother. Things like washing the dishes, putting the dishes away, cooking and cleaning, doing laundry on a timely basis, cleaning our room, maintaining ourselves, brushing our teeth, showering every day. All these things require our attention. And when you do it consistent enough, you don't even think about it. You just do it. But if we fall short of doing any of these things, it makes it cumbersome as we go along. If we don't brush our teeth regularly, then our oral health is going to fall apart. If we miss doing laundry in a week, not so bad. But if we miss doing laundry in 2 weeks, then now you might be running out of clothes or clean clothes, and you could reuse them, but it's probably going to feel uncomfortable, and it's probably going to put you in a pretty lousy mood. So our mental state can be seen in that same way. We got to be doing the daily things necessary to remind ourselves of what we need to focus on, of what words empowers us so we can thrive. Remember, our brains are not going to help us in thriving. They're just going to do what's necessary to continue just to get by, just continue to exist. It's on us to take the initiative and move beyond that if we want to reach what we desire. So identify what frame of mind you want that can help you get there and continuously work at it. The closer you are to it, the better you become, because emotions no longer dictate whether you want to or not, because the structure is there to consistently help you take action. I really hoped you enjoyed this episode. If you're interested in more topics like this, become a Thriving Minds member at www.thrivingminds.live. And remember, when you sign up to become a Thriving Minds member, you have access to our Talkin' Holographic Face app. I know that I said that we were going to release it here in early March. There's been some delays, but I assure you that we're close to it here in a few weeks. So please just be patient with us. We're working to make this experience a good one for you. So we want to get a lot of the issues out before releasing it. And please leave us a comment of anything that we talked about on this episode. Hopefully things that you liked. And if you don't, we encourage that as well. All right. Until next time.